Welcome to the Arrowheads podcast, your official podcast of the PLL sanctioned supporter group, the Arrowheads, your one-stop shop for Utah Archers lacrosse. The episode of the Arrowhead podcast, your official podcast of the official supporter group of the Archers Lacrosse Club. Apologize for us having a couple of weeks off. We were supposed to have a guest on last week, and we had some schedule changes. But we are excited to have with us this week with a new contract just signed, four-time top 5 player, top 50 PLL player. Hopefully, he'll be his 5th time this week with us this week. Grant Ament. Grant, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Appreciate you being here, taking time out of your day to be with us. Like we start every episode, if somebody's maybe new to lacrosse, they're new to the Archers, they've lived under a rock for the last 5 years. Who is Grant Ament?
So I'm a professional lacrosse player, born and raised about an hour north of Philadelphia. So I'm the youngest of three. And I'm in year 5 of my I just finished year 5 of my professional career. And I went to Penn State and the Haverford School outside of Philadelphia.
Awesome. I've some questions for you based on your background. Like we always tell people we kind of stalk you guys before we talk to you. In high school, you set some crazy records. I think when your senior season, you had, what is it, 130 points, I think?
Yeah, it was like 120 or 130, something
Yeah.
like that.
And
So
like 83 assists, which was absolutely bonkers. Um, you went to Penn State, which I think all of your family went to Penn State, right? Your parents, your brothers.
yep.
Um, so give me a little bit of background. Like, talk to us about your lacrosse history. Where did you start? Talk us about going through high school, and then why Penn State? Was it more of a family choice, or was it like a lacrosse choice? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so my older brother Brandon, my dad played soccer. He was a soccer player. Soccer was my first sport and was like my first sport that I was really into. Um, and I actually continued to play until my senior year of high school. Loved the game, and I loved being able to play the two sports because I felt like I never really burnt out on one. Um, so my older brother Brandon started playing in second grade, I believe. And then my brother Blake followed, and then I kind of just waited until first grade when I could finally put on the pads, and just, was on the sidelines at their games growing up. My fun fact for the Archers every year is my brothers played with Ryan Ambler, so I was Ryan Ambler's water boy and ball boy for their games growing up, and so that's a cool little story and kind of full circle moment to be able to, be able to play with Rye and learn from him and his leadership styles. So fast forward to my high school. I would have gone to Central Bucks East, which is in my hometown. I had the opportunity to go to the Haverford School, which was about 45 minutes to an hour away from my parents' place. Um, Luckily, my brothers were in college at the time. My mom had some free time on her hands to be able to drive me an hour to and from school every day, which now realizing how much of a burden that probably was, I have a lot more appreciation for it. But to me, I was still going to school, so life wasn't, that amazing yet. Um, so go through my freshman year. I played actually JV my freshman year. I was a second line midfielder on JV. So it was myself, my buddy Jake Hervada, and my other friend Connor Keating. All three of us were captains for Delaware, Penn State, and UPenn, which is a pretty cool thing. I like to say we were second line middies on JV. And then fast forward to that summer, the recruiting process started a little bit earlier for me at that time because there was no recruiting rules with September 1 of your junior year. So coaches could recruit you whenever. I went through the process, visited Penn State. As you said, my parents and brothers both went there. I'd been going to football games since I can remember. And if the I shouldn't say if the old coach was still there. So Glenn Thiel was the coach there for a very long time, and the team was always decent, but never really felt like they could be much more than that. And then once Coach Tambroni got on campus, if you ever have the opportunity to speak with him, he's just one of those guys you walk away from and you're like, wow, I want to play for that guy. And so the combination with the family stuff combined with Coach Tambroni and his vision on what he wanted our program to look like. Was just a great kind of marriage of the two. And he gave me the offer. At the time, I didn't have any other true offers from schools. Went out to lunch with my parents, and I was like, "What are we waiting for?" And went back and shook his hand and said, "Can't wait to play for you." So that's how the whole recruiting process went for me. It was not, I wasn't visiting a bunch of different schools. I wasn't guaranteed any scholarship really at the time. And really just wanted to go play for him and wanted to play for Penn State.
I love that. It's almost like, it's your hometown team, right? You just like you get to play for it's like every child's dream, right?
Mhm.
I do have a couple. I know Toasty's got a question, but I do have a couple of follow-up questions. What position did you play in soccer?
I was a right back and sweeper. So I was
Really?
yeah, I was on the defensive side of the ball. So
Okay.
my dad was a sweeper. So I growing up, like I obviously always wanted to play his position.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was but I will say come high school, one of the soccer benefits that I tell people is I was a role player on my like we had guys going to Notre Dame, Villanova, like we had some big time soccer players. And I was kind of the lacrosse kid who could run up and down the field, but I was certainly a role player on that team.
Love it.
I think being that though, it certainly helped me in lacrosse and helped my perspective on, how to be a better teammate and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. I appreciate you answering that one. That, being from England, obviously a big soccer fan. So
Yeah.
for those of you who don't know what a sweeper is, go look it up. It's awesome. All right, Toasty, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, hey Grant, thanks for being on with us, man. It's a huge honor to have you on. One of the questions I had, and it kind of ties back to your background, is the PLL. They ran this campaign this last year, the Welcome Home campaign, and I thought one of the coolest stories was how when you were 11, in middle school, you had that yearbook. Um, that yearbook writing where you said that you wanted to go play lax at Penn State and then you wanted to go pro. Um, so my question is, for a lot of us, we all had these dreams when we were 11 and maybe a lot of them died out. Would you say that like you were super focused ever since that day? Like was that because obviously you did play at Penn State, you are in the pros, would you say you were always as focused as you were during that time?
Yeah, it's I don't know if it was focused. I was obsessed. Like I was that's the way that I would describe it, and that's the way that my parents would say it too. Like obviously I was a hard worker, but I was more obsessed, and because I was obsessed, I wanted to be really good, and that obsession kind of drove everything. And it still does till this day. I think it's probably definitely more of a perfectionist these days than just a natural young obsession with something. But that's kind of how I would like. It was right around like fourth, fifth grade. Definitely started to. And I didn't really realize it, but I took it way more serious than my peers. And I didn't really start to see true success until high school, and then I would even argue I didn't see real true success where people knew who I was until that 2019 season at Penn State. And so, kind of that grind, that chip on your shoulder, I would say is kind of a combination of the two is both obsessed with what I did, but also being an undersized guy. I think I was a little bit. I certainly play with the chip on my shoulder still to this day.
Right. That's awesome. And just a follow-up to that, like what would you, now that you've achieved that goal, those goals that you had as a kid, what are you obsessed with now? Like what's on your radar as like the thing that you need to achieve?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, candidly, it's getting a few more of those hats that are hanging right here. I think the one you're wearing, like it's
Yes, sir.
it's. I think the winning side of things is where the obsession is now. because once you get a taste of it, like when we got over the hump last year, um, I felt that it's just an addictive feeling that when you can do that and say you're the best at what you do, in a professional sports league, like that's pretty cool. So I would say definitely more winning focused now, and winning obsessed now, and trying to figure out ways that we can continue to get better. I would say like falling in love with the process of figuring out a season, I think, is something that I'm really into now. And it's cool to be surrounded by guys that are all like-minded in that way. And that's where championships are kind of made.
It's awesome.
So, first of all, it's awesome to have you on. I think we've been looking forward to this as a podcast crew for a super long time. And to be honest, my personal story is I remember watching your pro debut and being like, let's get that jersey. And so I wore that jersey today. Pumped to be able to chat with you. We've been watching you since a rookie and we've been a big fan. So,
Thank you.
we kind of wanted to jump in. I think you're one of the first players to be like full time and to be a rookie going into the PLL. Like you're one of the first ones to do that. And so we wanted, I think everyone knows you as a lacrosse guy and an archer specifically, but who's Grant Ament off the field? What are some of your, you mentioned being a Philly guy, being at the sports events, but what do
Yeah.
you got going on? What are some of your hobbies?
Yeah. It's a conversation that I don't quite know the answer to a lot of the time on hobbies. Lacrosse is revolved around most hobbies. Like I still nerd out at watching college lacrosse every Saturday, and I'll throw on the NLL guys, and if any of my teammates are playing, I'll throw that on. So it's hard to say my hobbies without saying lacrosse. But yeah, I live in Philadelphia. I would say I'm an avid Philadelphia sports fan in general, and living here now, the Phillies having such great success, the Eagles having such great success. It's pretty cool to be here. So most of my weekends revolve around either watching Penn State football or the Eagles right now, and both teams are doing pretty decent despite the Big Ten championship loss. Yeah, I would say in terms of hobbies, love golfing, love to be able to get down to the beach, down to the Jersey Shore, and unplugging away from the lacrosse world and the regular world when I can. But in terms of day-to-day hobbies, because of what we do, our schedules are definitely a little wonky. So, I work a lot of nights, I work most weekends. So it doesn't really allow for a lot. But when I can get away and kind of just be one of the guys and watch a football game or a basketball game or a baseball game, I try to. And then, like I said, whenever I can get down to the beach, I try to do that as well.
Awesome. Just as a follow-up question before I hand it off, can you set the record straight on how you prefer your last name pronounced? Because I feel like you've been in the league for 5 years now, but we still hear the announcers say it differently. And I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah,
How do you prefer it pronounced?
it's Ament. It's
Okay,
Ament.
that's what we've been thinking. I thought I heard a podcast maybe when your rookie year where you said that, but
Yeah, yeah, no, there was my freshman year at Penn State. I've told this story before, but there's like a roll call and I'm first up, Ament. Here, Coach Tambroni stops the roll call in front of everybody and says, Grant, how do you say your name? I was like, Amen. Like looks at the roll call guys, like, you get your teammate's name right. Like he did. And I was just like, oh God, like I'm gonna hear about this later. Coach, this is my first day. What are we doing here? But yeah, no, it's Amen. You're not the first person to ask, and you're certainly not gonna be the last.
I just want to confirm it so we're not getting it wrong. We're going to be the podcast. We can't be throwing it around wrong. So, another question: what does the Ament family do? What are some family traditions that you guys are involved in? What does that look like?
So a lot of our family events revolve around my games. Just as I've through Penn State and then obviously now. Always take a trip to the beach in the summer. Um, we grew up going down to the Chesapeake, so my mom's parents had a place down there, and so that's where we would spend most of our summers going. Um, Other than that, nothing too crazy. I'm definitely the baby. I definitely get the most crap out of anybody and made fun of the most in my family. And especially now that I have two sister-in-laws, my girlfriend has mentioned it to me like, yes, you are very much the baby of the family, and get treated as such. So, if I'm ever feeling too good about myself, I know if I sit around the family dinner table, I'll get humbled pretty quickly.
We all know it's because the parents saved the best till last, and so those of us that are the youngest, we know we came out the best. So the others are just jealous. We know why they do it. So
Something like that. My dad would tell you I was a total pain in the rear end as a child. So,
I think we all are. That's teenagers for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, well, Grant, to bring it back to your favorite hobby, one of the things we also want to talk about is just your pro career in general and how it's evolved. You've had one of the most interesting, pro careers, I think maybe of all time. You start out just this rookie that just explodes onto the scene. You win Attackman of the Year, then you get injured, right? And then there's this kind of transition where you're going from both midfield to attack. And then just this last year, nominated for midfielder of the year, and many people would have argued you as number one. I mean, it was very clearly between you and Schreiber. And then, that's not an easy transition. I think a lot of people might think, well, they're both on offense, but anybody who knows the game knows that that's not an easy transition to make. Just going from attack to midfield. So I guess my question was, how did you, I guess, evolve or change to make those switches?
Yeah, I think two things. One, so you mentioned Tom and the midfielder of the year award. I think if I would have won that, I would have told everybody that Tom Schreiber deserved to win it. It the reason being, if you look statistically, yeah, we're similar. But if you look at the reason why I'm there, it's because of him. Because I watch it. Like I watch what the most dominant midfielder in the world does. And I just try to emulate a lot and then sprinkle in what I'm maybe a little bit better at, and maybe operating more behind the goal and kind of sprinkling in a little bit of Grant within kind of what Tom already does. So I think like before we even think about like my own personal transition, conversations with him prior to the season about, what my mindset needs to be if I am a midfielder. But then once I was running alongside of him, I think we went through, I think, probably some growing pains at times, but then it got to the point where I was able to open him up and take some of the pressure off of him, and he was able to do the same for me. And if you didn't substitute the right way, both of us knew how to play the substitution game. So I think starting with talking about Tom and his impact on me, is a big reason, and I would argue probably the biggest reason why I had success. But the other was more of a mindset switch. I think last year, meaning in 2023, I wanted to play attack, but I played midfield sometimes. And this year, we went into training camp. I went in trying out for it as an attackman. Matt Moore did as well. And we were told, hey, we're going with Matt. This is what we're going to do, and we're making that decision and we're sticking with it. So that way I could learn a little bit of what I'm doing. He could focus on what he needed to do, and there wasn't this guessing game. Um, First few games, I would say my mindset was just I was pissed off and I played with a chip on my shoulder. Um, but then it was about that like fourth game. I think it was maybe the whip snakes. No, the cannons game. Cannon's game, I felt like I was getting the hang of it, and I was having fun doing it alongside the guys that I was running with. And I also started to realize how much I could learn from the game. Like I would say I almost mastered, right? Like to that wing line and below, right? Below X, like you only can get so much better once you like master something. I haven't played midfield since ninth grade, like I said in the beginning. So to be able to switch fully back, like the leaps that I could take and the amount that I could learn, I realized like, wow, I could make a really big jump here. And I could push the envelope with what I'm able to do. And so I think, like I said, the Tom Schreiber piece cannot be overstated, I think. to be able to play with a guy that just talks the talk, walks the walk, and just does his thing. Combined with, me having to just, eat a little piece of humble pie, which isn't the worst thing in the world for anybody, but and really just switch my mindset and own it. I'm excited, after signing for these next 3 years. I don't know where I'm playing, but I know that I'm confident in my ability to play both sides, and more importantly, I know that I enjoy playing on both sides now.
Well, you've certainly proved that you can play at your best on both sides. And I guess, we've all been in coaching positions before. And there are coaches that have to make those tough decisions sometimes of like where they think the player should be. What would you say your advice is to a kid who's in high school that maybe gets put in a position, maybe some similar to you, where like they've played a position their whole life and now they're having to switch to a different position? Like, what's your advice to that kid on what they should do or how they should handle it?
Yeah, I think it's exactly kind of what I was just saying is like if you can be a more well-rounded player, whether that's switching from O mid to D mid, well, if you're switching to D mid, you can think about, okay, I was an offensive midfielder. How do offensive midfielders think? This is going to help me play defense. And then on the contrary, you're able to push it in transition and then you can use your offensive skills. So if you can make yourself a more well-rounded player, I think in general, and just always search for areas that you can improve, I think once you get to your finalized position, that comfortability is like you're just so used to it. And that's kind of how I felt. Um, but then the other side of it is if your coach is asking you to switch, that's because he sees that you are capable of doing something. And I don't think Coach Bates expected me to have the year that I had, and I think he'll probably be the first one to tell you that. Um, but at the same time, he knew that I could play that role and that I could complement Tom Schreiber and that, we could put Matt in a position to be successful down low, which is where he really does have great success. So for young kids, obviously it doesn't feel good, but anytime in my career, anytime bad things have happened, good things are right around the corner. Or anytime obstacles have happened. And if you attack an obstacle, normally good things happen. If you moan and don't necessarily want to be about it, that's normally when you don't have great years. And I look at that 2023 season and I shot the ball 6%, basically being you know, complaining where I was and not happy necessarily where I was. So learn from my mistakes and own it. And then the next year, I had great success because I felt like I owned it and I attacked the obstacle that was in my way.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that was an awesome answer. I love what you talk about, like going towards obstacles and accepting things as they are and moving forward from there.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
feel like we've watched the Archers over the last couple seasons and seeing different players being added to the roster. It feels like it's kind of been like a slow burner. Like we've acquired guys 3 or 4 years ago that are making big impacts now, right? But I wanted to talk about someone specific. Let's talk about Mac O'Keefe and your role with playing with him for the second time. Obviously, you guys have a lot of experience with each other from Penn State. Kind of talk to me what it's been like having him on, and were you kind of part of that as far as helping you guys acquire him? Tell us that story.
Yeah. So Mac just moved to Philadelphia, so him and I get to hang out a lot more in person, kind of more like the college days, which is a lot of fun. But I think the best way I describe Mac is he's just a winner. Like there is no other way to describe it. If you look at the way, obviously, he's arguably the best shooter on earth. He certainly has my vote. But if you watch the way like he rides the ball, he goes for ground balls, like
Yeah.
even when he's dodging, he's willing to get blown up if it means that either one of us is going to score or he's going to score. There's he does whatever it takes to win, and that's been since we've been at Penn State. You look at him, and I don't know how many game-winning goals he had at Penn State, but I can count off the top of my head at least five. And he has a knack for that big moment, but he does all the right things to put himself into a position to be successful. So in terms of getting him over to the Archers, yeah, I mean we're friends, so I know he was not put in positions to be successful for the chaos. And I think that's been very clear, given his success rate with us. Um, and I know those first couple years were difficult for him, regardless of the championship, because as a player, if you feel like you're not being utilized and maximizing your potential as a player, that's not a great feeling. So after we lost to those guys in 22 down in DC. Um, we had a little exchange basically saying like that's it. Like you're going to be a free agent after this year. Come play for us. We want to have you. And then we kind of had to keep our lips sealed until March, until the free agency thing hit, and then we ended up getting him. But he's been such a great addition to our team in terms of just the culture that he provides. Like I said, like you look at the way that the guy plays, it's a lot like Tom. It's like there's no ounce of energy left on that field, and he's known as a goal scorer, but his knees are bleeding most games. And he's a guy that's one of the most competitive winners that I know.
Yeah, it's been fun to see him as well, just because, first of all, I feel like we get all these great players from the chaos and then we end up utilizing them better than they did. But needless to say, I just think he's grown a lot as a player, and it's fun to see you guys kind of continue that on. I know you guys had a lot of dreams and aspirations. You guys made it really far in the tournament that one year in college, and to go out there and win some championships together, that must mean the world to you guys.
Yeah. It was. I'll never forget his dad like picking me up after this past year, just laughing that we did it again. But yeah, no, it's been great, and it's obviously that signing was, he was one of the first to text and get back to tell me like, all right, we got a few more in the tank here. Let's get back after this thing.
That's awesome. No, I really appreciate that answer. That's fun.
So as we talk about signings, obviously you just signed an extension, which we're all grateful for. I think in the Discord that we have for the Arrowhead, it was just like, holy crap, let's make sure we lock these guys down. We can't lose anybody. But your name was like top of the list. Everyone's like, we gotta lock this guy down. I think for a lot of us as fans, I don't know if we really understand that process. Can you walk us through kind of what that looks like for you? And then how does that also play into the championship series? Is there separate contracts for that? Talk to us about that because it feels like roster's different and so yeah, run us through that cycle.
Yeah, so for Champ Series, we can only pick up player like if we were to pick up anybody, which it doesn't look like we're going to outside of a goalie for Champ Series because all the guys from the 20 we have enough guys from the 25 man to be able to suit up a team. But for example, I know the Whip Snakes picked up a bunch of players. So they can pick up any of those players from the player pool. And then free agency doesn't start until after the Champ Series. However, with the contract, so my contract with the Archers was up in the middle of September, and if with your previous team, you're allowed to forego that free agent period if you want to resign. And so the conversation with Coach Bates, hey, we want to resign. Um, for us, it like wasn't a very hard conversation. Obviously, winning helps a lot when it comes to contractual stuff. Um, and I believe we've gotten, everybody else to at least sign for one more. So the Archers, I don't know how much of the free agent pool will go through. But all of those other players will hit the free agent market. I don't know what date it is. I think it's sometime in March. And that's when the free agency market opens. But for example, if you look at a guy like Rob Pennell, Rob's a free agent technically in March, but Rob can't be picked up right now to go play in the Champ Series for somebody different, if that makes sense.
Yep. Makes perfect sense. And I
Yep.
think he just broke Toast's heart because he had his bags packed, his pads all ready to go, hoping he was going to get that call to come play the champ series. But Toast, unless you got goalie gear, you're out. So
Next year we're there.
um, so talk to us a little bit, Grant. Obviously, your first year was the bubble year. You're in Utah for that, which we were all loving the fact that it came to Utah. And then you've played in Utah every year since. Talk to us about some of the progression you've seen. Obviously, empty stadium to this last year. Talk to us about how that progression has been playing in Utah every year.
Yeah, obviously year one was weird. It felt like kind of like a scrimmage almost in college, like a closed scrimmage is like the best way that I could describe every one of those games. But nonetheless, just grateful that we were able to play that year and I was able to have a rookie season. The following years, probably from 21 to 23, all good crowds. I thought they were always really well attended. I thought just us, because of having Will and Marcus and Adam on our team, just created a natural fit for us in Utah. And we had really, really good fans, like pretty much from the jump, I would say, because of the job that those guys did out there and that Will and Adam continued to do out there. So this past year, we had a feeling like what it was going to be like, but Tom came on the bus after doing a Dick's Sporting Goods signing and was like, "No, like it's going to be insane." Like the that was if we did that in Philadelphia, maybe 25 kids come. He's like, no, there were like the line wrapped around the store, and like every kid knew names of guys, like every fan knew who we were playing, like they're dialed into it. So then we go out to the field, and I mean that the momentum that we were able to gather from the crowd was really cool. Like I hadn't felt that since Penn State. And when you play, like I think that's one of the coolest things about sports. Like when the opposing team scored, like we should boo. Like when the Cowboys come to Philadelphia, we're not cheering. We're not cheering for them if they do something cool on the field. And I think in lacrosse and specifically in the PLL, you have kids that are fans of players playing in Utah. I truly felt like the fans that were there were fans of the Utah Archers and not fans of, anybody that we were Brennan O'Neill, right? Like they're booing Brennan O'Neill because Graham Hossick's standing him down. And like that stuff is really, really really, really exciting to think about like coming back to next year, because that was year one of us doing that. And I would argue that was one of the best crowds I've ever played in front of. And so, we're all just super excited and we're ready to lean into the community as well and give them, our best as much as they are in the stands.
Yeah, I think we told other guys this. Like, it's really easy to get behind a team that's winning. It's awesome, and and I think every time you guys come to Utah, you always make it close. There's
Yeah.
never an easy game, but yeah, we appreciate everything you guys. Obviously, as fans and as a supporter group, like it's easy to support a team that's winning championships. Like we love it, and I think we told other people. I think you guys are now the winningest sports team in all of Utah. Like the Jazz never won a championship. I think
Take
RSL
it.
has one. Like you guys got two. So it's like, hey, we're already, above everybody else. So we love it. So
Yeah, no, it's a cool honor for us and obviously fans that care about us and really want to get to know us. That's special. And we want to definitely build that community with you guys.
yeah, love it.
Hey, well, hopefully by the end of this, we'll have the whole team. We'll have the whole team interviewed, and so Utah can get to know their players pretty well. But one of the more recent things, and we just have a couple more questions for you before we let you go.
Yeah.
One of the things that has been on the PLO recently, talking about the top 50 players. Archer's obviously got 9 guys, which is tied for the most with the Atlas. This is just kind of a random fun question, but we were curious, like, who are your top 5 players in the PLO right now? And don't include yourself. We know your top 5, but who are your top 5?
Um, Tom Graham. I think Graham is the most underrated player on the planet. I've never met somebody who just disrupts and puts like the fear in another team like he does. And his ability, yeah. So those two. So Tom Graham. Um, then you got to put Sowers in top 5. I would say Trevor. Um, and then I'm trying to think of who else I would put in, and then obviously Teeter. Yeah. So I would say Tom Graham, realistically rating it, Tom Graham, Teeter, uh, s- uh, and then Baptiste Sowers are like kind of a flip of the coin for me.
Love it. Love it.
I guess the big question for the Archers fans too is Dobber going to be above Blaze in the top 50?
Should be.
Should be.
I doubt it. I think he certainly should be. But I think guys' ability or the guy's ability, Blaze, that is to have an impact in the clear and that stuff. Um, and then you also got to look at like I think where Dauber unfortunately gets taken down a notch is you got to look at the defense in front of him. And his defense is, I mean, we held the Chaos to 1 goal. Like it's we're our defense, like we won this year's championship off our ride in the coattails of our defense. And I'll be the first to say that.
How was that 1 goal game? Sorry, I'm kind of hijacking this. How was that 1 goal game for you guys? Because we sat there, like we had a supporter group, like we went had like a watch party at a wing place here in Salt Lake, and we were just sitting there like blown away. We're like, no, this isn't. And we were all when that goal went in again, it's that boom. We're like, screw you, Chaos. Like you can hold just miss everything from here on out.
So
But like,
that
how
one
was it
was
for you
on
guys on the field?
that one was on Mac because Mac got stuffed on the doorstep, and then they went the other way for that 1 goal. No, that was I felt like that was a game that we all so I think Salt Lake was a big turning point for us just in that we could do it without Tom, that Outlaws game. Like, and that gave us a lot of confidence going into the Chaos game, a team that call it what it is, historically ends our season. My first 3 seasons were ended by those guys. So having a little bit of a chip on your shoulder in that regard, obviously Fieldsy playing for those guys, Mac playing for those guys and coming over. I think that certainly was a piece of it. But it was that first half was about as dominant of a lacrosse half that I'd been a part of. And I think for us, like we were expecting a little bit more of a punchback, candidly. I don't know if that's mean to say, but like we went into that halftime saying like, all right, they're gonna punch back. They're gonna punch back. And in that third quarter, candidly, we gave them every opportunity to punch back. We played like crap in that third quarter and we still managed to hold them to 0. So it was kind of one of those things that I think for us offensively, we realized how much our defense could help us. And then, the pressure for us to score 16 goals in the final, like we knew we needed to get to 12. That was what we kept saying. Just get to 12. Our defense is not letting up 12 goals. And so I think the that Outlaws game was a really big kind of turning point from our defense, because obviously the Outlaws did what they did in week 2. And then, you combine that with the Chaos one, that kind of both of those wins gave us like an extreme wave of momentum to feel good going into the championship.
And I've got a follow-up question with that. When we were watching the Chaos game, we saw you talking and chirping on the field the whole game. And honestly, we were getting hyped for the whole team. But man, seeing you trash talk was really hilarious. Would you say that you're the biggest trash talker on the Archers?
No. I was a madman that day. Full disclosure, like Mac came up to me at halftime and was like, dude, you are seeing red. Like you are a crazy person right now. But it worked and I definitely hit a competitive switch that I think I rarely, maybe hit a few other times in my life. But no, I wouldn't say Connor Marr's a good trash talker. Trey, what are you talking about? You see Trey in the championship? Trey was crazy in the championship. I mean, Warren's a good trash talker. But I would say Marr and Trey are probably Trey's. You don't want to mess with angry Trey, is what I'll say. And yeah, you saw that come out on Championship Sunday.
Love it, man.
Well, you take a look at Trey too, and just standing there, you're like, I don't want to mess with you anyway. But
Got the
especially upset, like,
sleeve,
yeah.
everything going, dude. Yeah, he's intense.
Yeah, he's an intimidating dude. But when angry Trey comes out, that's when you see a different switch come out. So Trey haunted me in my college days at Ohio State. So I know exactly what he's capable of, and I think the world got to see it a little bit more this summer, which I was really happy for him for.
Yeah, you brought up Trey, and that was going to be one of my questions. I wanted to I know that you guys have a history of playing against each other back in the Big Ten and all that kind of stuff. So talk to us about some of that transition from going from some of your rival schools and things and then playing together in the pros. What does that look like?
Uh, it's there's banter here. Like we're talking to each other. Like when I was up at the Penn State Ohio State game, I like posted something on my Instagram story. We ended up losing. He's obviously texting me about like it's like there's that little banter, but I think specifically for like a school like Ohio State, like they're a pretty similar culture to Penn State in terms of the way that their coaches and just like the way that they're about the team and all that stuff. So a lot of similarity. I think you realize that we're all kind of the same. We're all cut from a very similar cloth, and you make up these kind of false narratives in your head about guys when you're in college. And once you hit pro ball, you realize how small the lacrosse world is, and that we're all doing the same thing. We're all living a very similar life, and more importantly, we're all pretty similar personality wise and as dudes.
Yeah. So I just have one more follow-up. I don't know if it's a comment or a question. I guess we'll find out how it turns out. But we kind of watch a lot of storylines go through. I think that's why we love sports, is we love the storylines, right? But I feel like as we've gotten to do a lot of these interviews, we've gotten to know the players and the archers and a lot of Coach Bates' philosophy. And we've seen that Coach Bates doesn't seem to move on from a player very quickly. When he makes a decision, he sticks with that player and he has the patience to watch and see how it plays out. And we watch, Connor Fields coming over to the Archers 3 seasons ago. We watched the pickup of Graham and Jeffrey for a Whipsnakes matchup that ended up paying out 3 seasons later. And then you mentioned they make the switch from attack to midfield with you, and they say, and we're sticking with it. Kind of talk to us about what that's like as a player that you're not going to be switched up immediately, and that you're going to have sufficient time to adopt things.
Yeah, I think Coach does a good job of letting you know exactly like well he's done a better job. I would say for a little bit there, I was kind of living in the gray. I think the biggest thing I would say about Coach Bates is so obviously there's the security piece that I think we all know, but I think people don't realize with him there is the security piece, but he's also listening to us on like what we need. And I think that's where his evolution as a coach has is what I've seen. And I think it's the reason why we've had the success that we had because it's truly a collaborative effort. But at the end of the day, he's the one that makes the call, and we trust him to make the call because we've given our opinion on things. Like he'll call me and ask and about, how do I feel about a certain player or how do I feel about, this man up play that we're putting in, or do you want to draw one up and put it in practice? And I think his ability to make you feel like you're a part of the building process is where that security comes from. And when he treats you as such and he treats you as an equal, it's really easy to play for somebody like that. And then not to mention, like he's the best GM in the league. Like there's nothing close. The roster that he created is unbelievable. And I got to give Cav a lot of credit there as well, because Cav's the one that dials in on the film stuff. But yeah, I can't say enough about Coach Bates I said it at the end of year post game conference, like we've not gotten along at times but no relationship is perfect, obviously. But I think if we didn't go through those times, I wouldn't have had any individual success that I had this year. And I'm grateful for the challenge, and I'm grateful for, more importantly, him sticking with me along the way and helping me find success, despite him knowing that maybe I'm a little pissed off at him.
Yeah, that's an awesome answer. Could you, to wrap up, this is going to be our last question, but talk to us about the championship series, what expectations you have, what that looks like. For us last year, it was like the first time we saw the Archers in a Utah jersey, right? But I think this year it's going to be a bigger deal for the fans because now we have a full season of being the Utah Archers. So
Mhm.
talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think we're really excited. As I said, we have all Archers guys on the roster. It's like, so I don't need to learn a new teammate's name. And it's all guys that I have played with, competed with. So offensively, I think we have much more firepower than we've had in years past. And then defensively, we have our 3D mids, and Mason Woodward playing down low.
Let's go.
So all four of those guys can obviously push it offensively, but they're used to playing with the short stick. They can lead down there, and they're also all incredible athletes that can get up and down the floor. And then offensively, with us gaining, you look at last year's roster, it wasn't the Archers really. Like it was not your standard guys that you normally see in the uniform. Well, as this year, we're going to have Mac play in the champ series, like him with a 2-point arc at 13 yards, they're going to be covering him the moment that he steps on the field. And so obviously Ryan's going to be playing, Matt's going to be playing, get to see Vano play some sixes. So, we've got a really great roster that I'm excited to play with. And I think we're excited because we feel like we have a good shot to win the thing. And obviously with the Olympics and all of that stuff coming up in 28, I think the heightened awareness of the players to learn the game. Like I want to be good at sixes. I want to be great at sixes, and I want to be able to learn as much as I can in that week. I think there's definitely a much bigger increase in the want to be great in it as a sport. So I think for fans, obviously rooting for the Archers, but I think you're going to start to see a better brand of the sixes game, especially as we get closer to 2028 and we start playing the game more.
Yeah. Thank you. We're so excited to watch the championship series, man. We're pumped.
We're jacked up to get down there. So for us, we're in February. It's a week and a half in a hotel with your buddies. So it's not the worst thing in the world.
Love it. Love it. Grant, thank you again so much for joining us today. Appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedules to sit down with a few fans, really is what we are, and just talk lacrosse. And so we're really grateful for that and excited to watch you guys in the Champ Series. So best of luck. It'll be fun to see the team out there. With that, Brady, you want to take us out?
Above all else, win, man. Let's go. Let's go look for the championship series and let's go in three-peat.
Yes, sir.
Above all else, win.
Oh,
Thanks,
yeah.
Grant.
Love that. Thank you, guys. Look forward to seeing you in Utah this summer.
Let's go.
Yes, sir.
See ya.
This podcast is not affiliated with the Premier Lacrosse League or Archers Lacrosse Club. This is an independent, fan-run podcast.
Yeah.